First, we go to CNN's Jeremy Diamond standing by for us in Israel. Jeremy, we're learning more about how Hezbollah communicates, opting for pagers over smartphones. Why? And where are these pagers being sourced?
Well, Jake, this appears to have been a low-tech effort to avoid Israel's high-tech surveillance, but it appears to have backfired on Hezbollah, becoming a vulnerability as hundreds of these pagers appear to have exploded simultaneously today. You can see in the video from multiple security cameras, including in a grocery store, for example, where these pagers appear to have exploded, one of them in a bag that was being carried by a man. The result of this is that we now see that 2,800 people, according to the Lebanese health ministry, have been injured, 170 of whom are in critical condition, according to that health ministry. So far, at least 9 people were killed, including an 8-year-old girl. Hezbollah has claimed, said that several of its members were indeed killed today. But, Jake, these pagers were an effort to try and avoid Israeli surveillance. We know that they were increasingly being used by Hezbollah in the wake of the October 7th attacks, as those cross-border skirmishes between Israel and Hezbollah have intensified over the course of nearly the last year. According to a Lebanese security source, these pagers were purchased in recent months. It's not clear exactly from where and whether or not they were tampered with or exactly how this attack today unfolded. But Hezbollah and the Lebanese government saying that Israel was behind it, the Israeli government not claiming responsibility.
John Miller, I thought before today that pagers are just pagers. How would this technically even be possible to detonate however many of them at the same time?
So this is a brilliant espionage operation and a brutal one. This would mean actually having to get into the procurement process of Hezbollah, either by creating a vendor, some intelligence service, presumably Israel, according to Hezbollah, would create a vendor to sell them these devices, which would already be rigged. Or in a more complicated scenario, they would have to find an existing vendor that Hezbollah was using and then get in the supply chain. Somewhere as simple as the delivery service, where they would have access to them, be able to open them up. Small amount, high explosives, software change in the device. You would have to have some kind of initiator for the explosives, maybe a small amount of a different substance that was higher. But either way, the idea was to kill and injure who they killed and injured. But really the idea was to send a message to Hezbollah and its people that we are in your systems. You thought this would protect you, this device. We blew up 1,000 people or more today. That means you have to think twice about your phones, your cars, your automatic starters, your computers. It really is meant to set Hezbollah back on its heels and have the people at the bottom of the organization wonder, do the people we're working for really know what they're doing? And to have the people at the top of the organization saying, how much are we compromised on how many levels?
Yeah, and just to remind people, the group Hezbollah, the United States and many other Western countries considers to be a terrorist group. Jim Sciutto, where are United States officials on this? Are they talking to officials in Lebanon? Are they talking to officials in Israel?
They are stating quite clearly that they were not involved in this, and they're not making any public comment about who's responsible. I think the word I've heard most is awe, but also concern. I mean, awe, given the scale of this. You're talking about attacking hundreds, perhaps thousands of Hezbollah operatives in multiple locations around Lebanon at once, disrupting Hezbollah's communication system, which it had reverted to due to concerns about vulnerabilities with other devices. But also you could be certain that Israel is looking at all the social media video that I'm sure many of us have seen and others watching this broadcast to now identify by face members of Hezbollah, presuming that all these pagers went to people who are in the Hezbollah network, and that is something that Israel can be certain to take advantage of going forward. But in terms of concern, Jake, this happens at an extremely volatile time in the region, concern about an expansion of this war on a front in the north, which, by the way, we very nearly got to just a couple of weeks ago. I was in Israel when, you'll remember, there was a massive Hezbollah strike, missile and rocket strike plan that Israeli and U.S. intelligence got wind of minutes before it was launched, and they carried out. Israel did strikes taking out those firing positions. So you can imagine the table is set for some form of retaliation in the midst of growing concern about escalation.
And Jeremy, I read a Reuters story from earlier this year, I think, explaining that members of Hezbollah were no longer going to use smartphones because they thought the Israelis or whomever could target them or spy on them that way. So that's possibly why they were using pagers. But I can't imagine that these exploding pagers is actually going to deter Hezbollah.
Well, there's no question about it, Jake. This puts Hezbollah in a position where they are going to have to respond in some kind of way. They have very squarely laid the blame at Israel's feet. And because not only of the scale of the attack in terms of the number of people who were injured and killed in this attack, we're looking at some 2,800 people who were injured, although only about 170 of whom are in critical condition. But nonetheless, beyond the scale of the actual impact, it's the psychological toll of this, of Israel showing Hezbollah. It appears, again, Israel hasn't taken responsibility for this, but it appears that it is Israel's way of showing Hezbollah that it can get inside its networks even when it tries to evade its high-tech surveillance efforts, and it puts Hezbollah in a position of looking quite weak at the moment, and therefore you can expect that they will likely choose to retaliate. Whether they do so immediately remains to be seen. We should note that this is probably the most significant escalation since the assassination of senior Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr in late July. It took Hezbollah 4 weeks after that to actually retaliate, so we don't know how quickly they will choose to do so this time.
Thank you all for your reporting. Really appreciate it.